This is a bromance. Just two dudes talking about all the things that happen in their lives together. Trying to make a difference, trying to be a little inspirational without sounding cheesy. Now this is what we're doing. Normally there'd be a new chord or a new set of lyrics or a new melody or new words, but Paul only has two chords to work with, and that's cool.
Bromance.
A bromance. Paul is also a bromance.
This was a bromantic chat.
Holistic conversation, never even scripted.
It got serious and that.
And kind of funny, especially when I said that my dad sold me for 10 grams. The song was called 10 grams.
You finally made a song out of it. Yes, welcome back to the Pop-Up with Paul and friends. You know, I'm so appreciative of everybody tuning in, listening, subscribing. Thank you for the reviews. Thank you for coming back each week. You know, we're here doing a little show, having fun, and today is a very special episode. This guy's about to leave town. He's moving this week, and he took the time outside of, you know, yelling and taping boxes and maybe writing songs, he's a songwriter, to come over here and chat with us. You know his music. I can't wait to get to know him better because I'm going to know him today even more than I ever have. Put your hands together for the one and only Forest Blakk, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You know,
Crowd goes wild.
The crowd's crazy. There's so many people watching. Maybe one day we'll do this in the theater. For now, we're in a steamy garage.
Yeah, it feels good.
You feels nice, right?
Feels like home.
Yeah, steamy.
You just did really. I feel like under pressure.
Yeah,
like, yeah, it
good.
feels good.
Dude, you posted something recently that really blew my mind that I didn't know about you. So we'll get right into it because I've known you like through the business a little bit, through friends here and there, right? I had no idea. Only a few years ago, you were living out of your car in LA, trying to make it as a songwriter. You strike me as someone like you're a fun guy, but there's a lot going on in there too, right? Like, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like, I make fun of the homeless in LA too much, and now you're making me feel like I should stop because you're a good example of someone who once was and is now doing huge things.
No, I think it's I mean, I didn't plan on being homeless. It wasn't like I was like, I'm gonna life go off the rails by my own hands. It was like I found myself in a position where I was like, how did this happen?
Sure.
And then next thing you know, I'm in my car and I'm like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, and it's crazy because I was homeless as a teenager on and off.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm never gonna be in that position again. And so to like find myself in LA of all places, living out of the back of a rental was a pretty big.
Wow.
Like, whoa. I
do feel like in our business though, there's stories like that. Like you can't give up on yourself, right? Like I speak for I think all creatives too, where you go through that period of like, I'm not making money. I don't know if I'm good at this. I mean, obviously we know you can sing. You're a great singer. But were you insecure about writing? Like, because you're a great songwriter too. What happened initially?
No, like it was tough because I was signed to, I'm signed to one of the biggest record labels on the planet. I work with all the greatest people in the world. I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that music doesn't pay off like instantly like a job.
Yeah.
You don't just work for 2 weeks and then collect your paycheck and then go about your business and then you rent the house that you want or the apartment and you just keep climbing. It's like you're at the mercy of the world. Like you have to say what you have to say in a way that you feel you can represent it, and then you put it out and you're like, I hope the world likes it enough to make the label want to go to radio so that I can make some money. And so it's a trip, man. Like even I've heard stories of people having the biggest hit in the world and still having no money in the bank account.
Yeah.
Because it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I had like a bit of money, but I found myself living out of the car because I was engaged to somebody and then came home and the relationship ended without me knowing and it was over.
Damn.
And so I was like, whoa. And I had nowhere to go. I'd kind of uprooted my whole life and I'd moved to Europe. So the next thing you know, I have to catch a flight and I didn't even know where to go. So I just was like, I guess I'll go to LA because I can work. And I called the label and I was like, can you get me a rental car? I'm gonna go write some songs. And they're like, dude, you just finished an album. What are you talking about? It's like I got some stuff to say.
Whoa.
And so I landed in LA and I like bounced around from the car to like a friend's couch to my buddy's little guest house thing that he had and like was just trying to keep myself afloat. And I didn't want to set myself up in LA because that would be all the money I had.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, maybe I'll end up getting back with my ex. Like I was trying to work on that.
Whoa.
So it was a trip because I'm like sleeping next to the PCH. You're seeing like these multi-million-dollar houses to the left of you. You got the ocean to the right. You got crazy things in front of you and in behind you. And like I'd wake up in the morning and I'd walk over to Vaughn's and get the code to go in the restroom. And then like that's where I would brush my teeth and just clean up and then head into the city for the day to see if I can write myself out of the problem.
Interesting. So you were already sort of set up, though, with the business of music a little bit with the record deal.
Dude, I'd played Red Rocks.
Whoa.
I played to 10,000 people, got a standing ovation as the opener. No one knew was coming, and it blew people's minds. So I just finished playing like the Greek. I played Red Rocks.
You were on high.
Dude, I was playing to like 3,000 to 10,000 people a night.
Who are you opening for?
Need to Breathe.
Oh, nice.
And so like life was cool, and I come home and my relationship ends, and then I'm done.
Where were you living?
I was in Germany.
Why there? The ex was there?
Yeah, so she was from Germany, and then I signed a record label, like a deal when I was a lot younger, and set up my roots over there a little bit. And then when I met her, I was like, maybe I'll go over there.
Nice.
So it was a trip again to be. Yeah.
So going back though, because you mentioned you were homeless growing up a little bit too. Like, have you always? Because I don't know enough about you. That's why you're here. Like, were you always trying to make it as a musician, or did you go through different phases before you were like, I'm gonna be a songwriter, or what happened?
Dude, I had no clue. I didn't know you could make music and have that be a job. Like I was a product of a weird upbringing. So like my dad was a gangster, and my mom was the wife of a gangster. And so music was something that I heard. I didn't and barely at that. Like my dad was really strange with songs, and like we couldn't listen to just anything. And
wait, what was it? Wait.
Well, he's a really Irish, superstitious kind of dude. Like, just to say it for the way it is, like someone tried to kill him when we were kids. So someone shot him 3 times on our front doorstep.
Oh my God.
And after that, like we weren't allowed to listen to anything because it was like whatever we were listening to must be the reason why. Like it was crazy.
No 50 Cent.
Bro,
he got shot.
It was
many
crazy.
Times.
Yeah, well, he got shot 3 times and lived, and
damn,
it was crazy. And that was like I was like 11 or something like that, or 10.
Well, wait, tell me I don't know either. Like, I need location, I need era, I need to know all the gangster history.
Well, it's terrible. I hate it. I try not to glorify it because I grew up. You
shouldn't, because
I hate it.
You know, like that's the thing about movies and this topic. And I'm Italian. We do glorify this stuff, but you've lived through it.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
I don't have better words to say. I have such a bad taste in my mouth. All the people I grew up with are dead.
Whoa.
No one comes out of it on top.
Right.
I watched my father go from having tens of millions of dollars to literally delivering pizzas. And I sit here and to be honest, it's going to sound so harsh, but it's like I just look forward to the day that I hear he's no longer here. It's
really?
Like, yeah, I don't know him. I haven't talked to him in 20 years. Like I have no relationship with my family.
Yeah.
It's like you watch these people just destroy everything good about the things that they have, and the consequence is terrible.
Where were you at this age in the world?
I was in Montreal.
Montreal, okay.
Yeah.
And so did you leave the house at a young age? Like, you wanted to get out?
My dad got arrested when I was 12 and got thrown into jail. And my mom was a really gentle, kind person, but, she didn't really have much growing up. I don't think between my parents, I don't think either one of them finished like past grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so here's this woman who's like kind of attached to this gangster and doesn't know what to do with herself, and falls victim to drugs and anxieties and depressions and whatnot. Mm-hmm. She's trying to raise 3 kids, and it was nuts, and she couldn't do it. So my brother ended up in a group home for a while, and then I ended up on the streets because she just couldn't handle.
Whoa.
Couldn't handle us in life.
And you were a teenager on the streets then, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was 13 when it started. I would be on and off. And then by the time I was 15, I ended up moving in with my nana, which was like a really life-saving moment for me.
That is interesting too, because you hear about like getting into gangs, getting into violence and drugs, and like it is a home like that. Like, were you in with the wrong crowd back then? Were you doing
like
you want to share?
No, yeah. Like I definitely started following the footsteps because that's all I knew. Like again, I didn't know that music was something I could do.
Yeah.
I think like most of us, if your dad's a hockey player, I'm gonna be a hockey player. Yeah. If your dad's a good chef or a baker or a butcher, you're like, I'm gonna be like dad. And for me, it was like, I remember my dad pulling a gun on a guy when I was 6 or 7, and I remember seeing the power in a person beg for their life, and was like, oh, I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So when he got arrested, I didn't really know what to do. I was so lost, and I was so young, and I was in such a, as you enter into your teenage years, it's such an important time in your life. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to just try and make my dad proud. And so I would like start fighting and scrapping, and then I'd collect money, and then it was like, and all these things I was trying to earn his love and validation. And like the greatest thing about like these sociopathic mobster people is that they know that and they never give you that.
Yeah.
So you keep doing things that are completely out of character.
Yeah.
To earn this like affection. And so that was it, man. That was my course until I was like 21. I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And then music kind of came and caught me. It was wild. I had no intention of doing music. I had no clue I could do it.
Damn. So did you not even sing back then? You were just like,
dude. No, my grandmother
went throwing punches. You're
just
like, hey,
yeah. Just pushing the air. No, my nana took me when I was 15, and she was like, "I want to get you a gift," and I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know what to ask for. I just, it wasn't something that I was like privy to, I suppose. And I had this memory of being 5 and my uncle being like, "Yo," he opened up this like catalog, this like one of those like store catalogs and it had gifts in it. And he's like, "Do you want the guitar and the microphone or the guitar?" And I looked and I was like, that thing has 2 things. I want the mic and the guitar. Mm-hmm. And he bought this like cheap, like Fisher Price thing for me, and it probably broke within like 10 seconds of opening it. And so in my head, I was like, this time I'm going to get the guitar. And so I told her, I'm like, I want a guitar. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to play. I didn't know anything. So she went down to Steve's Music Shop in Montreal and got me this knockoff, Fender Strat, and I would sit there and I didn't know how to play it, but I remember like hitting it and going, like that. If I felt something, it was really weird, man. I don't buy into too much hocus pocus stuff, but I can tell you that like I hit those strings and it was like there's this like sound that came out of me. It's like ache of like there's a response, and I was like, what the hell is that? And it tripped me out.
Oh, interesting.
So I put the guitar down. I was like, I don't want to feel that thing again. I felt vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. So that guitar, I would like dabble, and then like I would like I tried to like my nana was like, you can stay at my house, but you have to just go to school. And I was like, okay. And so I went to the school, and like I met these dudes who were hanging at the back in the music room, and they were cool and they were jamming on music, and I didn't know how to play guitar, but I saw them and I was like, you guys need a guitar player? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. So I ran to my nana's house. I got the amp, I got the guitar. I didn't know how to play it. And so they quickly look at me and they're like, dude, you suck. We don't need a guitar player. And I was like, shit, okay.
Fake it till you make it, though.
Yeah, well, I started looking around and I didn't see anybody with a microphone. So I was like, you need a singer? And they're like, you sing? I was like, yeah. I got a poem at my house. Give me a second. So I run back to my house. And I had this poem that I wrote. And so I took it and I just freestyled whatever came to mind off the poem. I didn't know how to sing. I'd be like, I would sing when I was like a kid. I'd like sing a Backstreet Boy song to like get a girl's attention or something like that. And so I sang it and they're like, you're in. I was like, yeah, I'm in a band.
Whoa.
And so like we dabbled, and it felt cooler to be part of a band than a gang. It was such a nice retreat from all this like really hard, chaotic stuff that was happening and in tandem with all this. And so these guys were really cool, and they weren't angry and they weren't aggressive. And so I was like, this is awesome. But it quickly died. Like it was like, this isn't real,
But it was your first introduction into, a fateful moment for you to change your life in a way. Have you seen the movie Coco, the Disney movie?
No.
There's a great scene where the little kid has a guitar, and it's a magical guitar, and he hits it for the first time, and like flowers fly. He's like waking up the dead basically in the movie.
Okay.
In my mind, that's how I see you with that first guitar strum. Like it didn't sound like it probably sounded like this guitar out of tune, like.
Oh, it was brutal.
But
yeah,
it's a moment in your life where we have these moments. It's indescribable, right? I think you're really fortunate that you were able to kind of notice that over time. Like instead of thinking, some kids maybe would have been like, oh, I thought I liked that, but then back to the gang life or something. That really stuck out to you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like that was all I knew, and so like that was the direction I was going to. And then when I was like 21, basically my father came to me being like, you either time to kill or be killed. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, that, it was weird because I didn't really care to live. I didn't really care for life, but I had a girl I really liked, and I was like, whatever she says to do, I'll do. And she was like, yeah, go change your life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And so I went home. I like bought the first plane ticket I could find. Didn't know where I was going, like, and I got out of there.
Where'd you go?
I went to Calgary. And so like I landed in Calgary, like completely lost without like any direction. And
why there?
it literally was so I read this book. I only read a couple books by that time in my life. I read like Stuart Little, the Trumpeter Swan, and then this book called The Celestine Prophecy. And that was it. That's all. I didn't have much of like this like literal literature upbringing. But that book, I finished it the day that this question came and hit me of like, stay or leave kind of vibe. And that book is like, it's really deep into synchronicities and like just trying to like just follow fate, I suppose, like, and just, or let fate do its thing and be part of it, is what I took from it. And so I get hit with this question. I feel really like maybe open or susceptible or vulnerable in that moment because of this book. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to follow like the lines of fate. And I went on the computer, and the first ticket that came up to get me out was to Calgary.
You were just looking for a random plane ticket out.
That's it. And so I bought the first plane ticket out. I grabbed whatever little cash I could find around the house. And I got this little thing to write down all the like places I could rent in Calgary. And then I caught that plane out, landed in Calgary, and it was like that was a whole new life starting.
Damn. I mean, that's such a bold choice at that age too. Obviously, it's so hard. You were such an impressionable age with your family. Like, as a kid, it's hard to decide against, nature's to stay with family. Like, it's natural to be like, you're my parents, you're my siblings. So that must have been a difficult, like, ripping of the Band-Aid.
Kind of, but like, I didn't grow up with him, basically. Like, like it was weird because I had this desire to like, again, to like earn love or validation, but I didn't know him. He went to jail, and when he came out, I was 16 or like turning 17 or something like that. So I was a man. I had already really become a man. And the things that I faced, like I ended up back on the streets at 16, and then ended up back with my nan again for the last year of high school. So I was scrapping and doing a ton of different things. I had my own little infrastructure. I was like, I'm gonna validate myself, So it was maybe, it probably would have been complicated if I had any semblance of a relationship, but I didn't. And the truth is, he was my stepdad, but he was the only dad I knew growing up. So there was a disconnect there. Like, I knew at a young age, he made me aware that I wasn't his kid too.
Jeez.
I was his kid when he could earn something from me, but apart from that, I wasn't his kid. I was a different name, and so it was a trip. When him and my mom would fight, he'd be like, I'm gonna take my kids to Jamaica. Like, I remember my dad, he was beating my mom up, and I was a kid, and my mom was like, I was watching this, and I was really young. I was maybe like, I don't know, I never remember the ages of all these things, but anyway, I remember him beating her up, and she was like, call the cops. And he's like, don't you dare call the cops. But I felt really loyal to her, so I called the cops. So I ran next door, and I got the cops call. And I feel like I had to pay for that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it was a trip, because then I watched my mom fall victim to him and never choose me. So there's all these like crazy, traumatic, like family dynamics going on, and I'm like, so again, to get to the point of, maybe it should have felt harder to leave, but it didn't. It felt kind of good.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you learned to survive at a really young age on your own. You had to figure out, and in a way, music almost sounds like a way to cope, and it was an outlet for you once you found it, but you weren't really fully committed to music, it sounds like then. But something open to you in your own way. In a way, I would imagine you're trying to escape emotionally all the time. Like, is there other ways that did you get into drugs and alcohol then? Was it like...
No, I fought. I fought a lot.
Good to know not to ever get with you. You probably still have it in your back pocket.
And I don't fight no more, but it's tough because I've learned how to blend, so like it's interesting because I feel like I have two different voices. I feel like I have two different sides or two different mindsets. Like, I have this place that I've come from, which it is like a survivalist place. Like, I've seen the world and what I call it the real world, like how things really work.
Yeah.
I see how people lie and cheat and get bought out, and And then I see how this, like, there's this like candy coated version of the world that I love, that I live in now, which is like, I don't have to see those things, you know, but it's hard in my mind to go, that doesn't exist. It does. You see it all the time. Like, people are pretty self-serving, and so
yeah, and people are struggling. I mean, you are describing LA in a way too, because it's like you said, the beach houses and the homeless are like all in view here, and everyone avoids each other. Really, it's a similar thing here.
Yeah, they do, but then they blend. It's oil and water. Like, you become a fixture in the place.
Yeah,
and so I feel like that as I travel through the world, and like, it's wild to see, you know, the difference between coming from these places and watching friends lose their lives and family lose their lives, and you know, and seeing people that couldn't get away from those things and where they are now, and then seeing where I've come from and where I am. But it's a trip because I don't feel different. Yeah. I guess I always thought it would feel different.
Definitely. Also, you're describing there's like with loss and grief and trauma, there's a perspective about life like that I only know from my own experience with grief and loss, but like you see life differently, almost like, not F it. I don't want to say F it, like we can't YOLO completely or we'll end up dead, right? But like, there is a level to that, right? Where you go, I've seen guys get killed. I've seen whatever you've seen growing up. Life feels differently. It must feel weird then when you get pretty well known in your music career. You're selling out shows. People know who you are. Do you struggle with all that a little? Because like you said, you feel the same way, but people know your music. People know, or is your face in a good position with fame where like they know your music, but they may not right away know you're Forest Blakk?
I think there's a mixture. I think some people do. Like you have those fans that just know everything about you.
Right.
And then you have those fans that discover you and they're learning about you. And then you have fans who, like, I guess the best way to describe it is that, like, people love what you do because they see themselves in it.
Right.
It's not about you. You know, when people come to a show, it's not because they want to hold me on a pedestal. It's like, no, it's because they dance at their wedding to my songs, or they want to hear that in real time. So there is a whole group of people who definitely don't have a freaking clue who I am. but you know, like, man, dude, I'm go to Salt and Straw in Pasadena, and all of a sudden there's this woman who's kind of freaking out that I'm there in the line, and you know, I can travel all around and people know me, and my fiance says it all the time. She's like, this is a trip. Yeah, like, it's a trip. But I think that I've never changed. Like, I'm very normal. I'm here texting fans all day long, and I have this app called Community where I that's great. Yeah, like, I text all day long. You know, that's the whole, like, I connect with these people, or I hang out with them. Like, I don't know, man. I'm very mindful because I don't like to say things about myself in a way of like, this is what I think of myself. Right. And but I think for the sake of this part, like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel a bit like Robin Hood, maybe. I feel like I get to play in this world, but it's this world that I'm part of.
Well, that's just maybe because of what you knew growing up. I mean, we all are a product of our upbringing in some way. But you also feel like, to me, I've only known you the last few years, you seem like you're not a hardened guy, but you have a hardened past. So you definitely have done work to get through that. Like, I didn't know any of this stuff when we first met. You know, I mean, you have a couple tattoos, but I mean, you're a musician, so I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like
that's the only gang. That's the only gang thing about you, I think. Honestly.
Yeah, I think this is the stories for sure. Like, I think probably why I didn't end up going down that path forever is because I didn't feel like that wasn't me. Yeah, it was a product of being born in a place with, you know, and my mom's choices, and then just being like a regular young boy, like trying to earn, again, that validation. So it's like, but it wasn't something that I wanted. It's not in my blood. It's not, you know, my birth father, I think he fixes fridges, you know? So that's like, you know, and you know, I met my biological father when I was 18, and which was a whole other trip.
My God.
Yeah, dude, like, I have a crazy story about this. Right?
You've had a lot to deal with too, man. A lot of different ups and downs. By the way, I'm not trying to glorify gang stuff, but fixing fridges sounds like it could be connected too, just so you know. No, he fixes fridges, you know. What do you mean? Well, don't worry about it. All right? Don't worry about it. No. I'm curious about your journey from leaving this type of upbringing, going somewhere else, and then was there a shift where you go, I don't want that life. I'm on my own doing something else. I'm going to try and get better at this and try and pursue music as a field, or did you work in it?
No, man, dude, I showed up in Calgary and then, like, didn't know what to do, so I went to a biker bar and became a doorman. You know, like I was
Still
like,
fighting. You're still ready to fight.
still ready to fight. Well, I didn't have a high school education. I never graduated. Like I was like, what am I going to do? And Calgary was in a weird spot because there was an oil boom, so you could make crazy amounts of money with basically like just in any skilled labor. So I would try my hands at different things. You know, I worked for like a refrigeration and cooling company building these big walls. Hated it. You know, I went and worked in the oil field. I lasted 24 hours and was like, this is not for me. You know, and so I was like struggling because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't know where to go. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my whole life. So I was trying all these things on. You know, even at one point I tried to sell cars. And I was like, man, I just can't do.
You're too real, thank God.
Yeah,
Sell cars.
it was messing my head
Those
up.
are the worst people on the planet. I mean, maybe
Some are great.
some are fine.
Some are really challenging.
I guess.
You know, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm trying to play
Smoking
Switzerland
mirrors.
right now.
I've had a lot of traumatic, different type of trauma, but car dealerships,
They've got you.
they got you. They know they're there to mess you up.
Canadian car dealerships.
They're probably nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of stories. And then you sign.
Canadian, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
the Canadians. They can't rip you off too much at car dealerships. I would imagine.
No, just a little bit.
Just a little
Just
bit.
enough.
You know, and you're all in
Yeah.
agreement. It's like,
And they'll give you a coffee.
good to see you.
And some
here's the
Timbits.
coffee. Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't know what I was gonna do, and but I was jamming on this guitar, and so like that I found solace and comfort in, you know. And by this time I could play a couple chords, but I didn't really know. I didn't know much about a guitar. I could play like 3 chords, and I would sit and I would jam my feelings out. And so nevertheless, I'm in Calgary, and the girl that I was seeing, she was like, I'm not coming out. And I was like, but I left. Like you said, you were gonna come out here. So now I'm facing like a completely new life, and then I feel completely abandoned. I feel busted. My heart's broken. And she did the right thing. Like I totally was I was in a messed up place. So there I am, and I have this guitar, and I'm just making up stuff as I'm playing these same chords over and over again, and I'm just talking my feelings out, which I didn't realize what I was doing. And it was I'd flown to Toronto to try and get her back, and I was with my kid's sister, and I brought this guitar, and I was just hemming and hawing, and she started writing down everything I was saying, and I ended up, you know, I finished whatever I was doing, and she's like, you should look at this, like, and I look, and there's these lyrics, but they were very real. It was exactly how I felt. And I would never have written that down. I never knew to do that. I only would write like a little poem here or there, and that was it. And so she was like, yeah, this is pretty wild, you know. And so I took that back with me. I left from home and flew back to Calgary. I didn't get my girlfriend back, and but I had this new thing, like, and I was really enamored by it. I was like, this is like, how did that come from me? I don't remember. I didn't do that. It's like, where did this come from? And so that started opening a weird door for me. And so I would start doing that again. And so back to synchronicities, I'm in Calgary. I've been there for like maybe 6 or 7 months. I got a job. I think I was working for the city of Calgary at the time. I was making like $25 or $20 an hour. It's just crazy. It's like unheard of money for where I'm from, you know? And so I called my little brother who was in a really bad place too. And I was like, you should come out here. Like, you should check this place out, because like people like us can start a new life, you know? And so my brother agrees to come out, and he goes, but man, I'm selling these speakers in parking lots. Can I ship some speakers to your house? I need to make money. And I was like, if that means you're gonna come out here, sure. So he comes out to my house, and he ships 30 of these boxes of speakers that he's gonna hustle to people in parking lots. And so the order comes, it's in my name. They land at my house. And my brother and I, within like a week, like, it was catastrophic. He's totally not doing anything right. He's falling apart, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to kick you out kind of vibes. But before this, he'd sold me one of these boxes. Showed up, so the 31st box had 2 like little mini guitar amps in them, and I was like, these aren't your speakers, you know? And he's like, yeah, my boss said I could sell them to you though. What are you gonna give me? I was like, I don't want to give you anything. I need money, bro. I was like, okay. He's like, whatever, $80 or something. So he takes the money, and anyway, I kick him out of the house, and that's it. Our brothership is over for the next foreseeable time being. And so I get a call. It's a Friday, and it's from Greyhound, and Greyhound's like, hey, we shipped these speakers to you, right? I was like, yeah. And they're like, by chance, did a box with amps show up? And I was like, maybe. And they're like, well, those belong to somebody else. The shipment got mixed up. So we're going to need to give you get those back. I was like, give me the number of the person. I'll figure it out. And so I call this kid. And I start talking to him. I'm like, you had these speakers? He goes, you had these amps? He goes, yeah, I have the amps. I was like, all right, well, come to my house on Monday after I'm done my weekend shift, and I'll hook you up. And I was like, you play guitar, though? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, maybe we can jam. And he's like, okay. So nevertheless, he comes over the Monday, give him his amps, we jam, and we wrote like 3 songs.
No way.
And it was like, wow, this is such a special moment. But why this is a bit weird, this kid, his name was Ben. Ben bought a set of speakers in a parking lot in British Columbia about 2 or 3 years prior to moving to Calgary. He happened to move to Calgary on the exact same day that my brother, excuse me, ships 30 of these speakers from Toronto to Calgary. It just so happens that Ben shipped his little speakers in the box that he bought the speakers from. Like, he shipped his guitar amps in the box, those speakers. That happened to be the same exact speakers that my brother was selling. And they land at Greyhound at the exact same time. And so the people at Greyhound go, well, this speaker box must be part of the 30. How did it get over here? So they throw it into the mix with mine, and it comes to my house. And Ben, like, changed my life. Him and I started a band.
That is crazy.
And then I wrote all these songs, and then it started. And then I became addicted to that experience, that hustle of like, I'm like, I kind of got similar feelings of feeling good from making money in my past, but without any of the bad stuff attached to it, and I could do it over here.
Wow.
And so I started, and then I started to like sell shows out and like hustle crowds.
Wow, sorry.
Hustling crowds into a place. I was like, this is wild.
Whoa.
And then it started. I became addicted to that feeling, and then I played a show where people clapped for the first time, and that changed my whole life.
That is crazy.
Yeah. It was a long story, but it's that synchronicity. I've been following it ever since.
That's amazing. It's also like you're open, right? Like, we have to remind ourselves to stay open to these chance opportunities, and we do get more closed off as we get older. And also, for your upbringing, like, you could have been a closed guy. You could have just been like, everyone's out to hurt me, you know? But it sounds like you had this like kind of innate openness about you, even going through what you went through, or and leaving and like figuring out your own way. But wow, Ben! I mean, Ben is like your first co-write that changed it all.
Dude, like, what a hero, man! Yeah, he was my best bud, and like we were terrible. I was horrible.
I'm sure it was okay.
It was so bad. But I think when I would sing, I didn't know how to sing yet, really. But I think people felt what I was trying to say.
Right.
And so they paid attention. But dude, I remember playing like the coolest place in Calgary. It was my first concert, and I sold it out. I got everyone to buy tickets. And we played, and I had a panic attack on stage. I didn't know. A full-on, like, blood drain from my body vibes.
Oh, my God.
And I come off stage. I knew I made the owner a lot of money. And I know here I am seeking the same validation from all these strangers that, like, never found with my old man. And it was like, I did right. His name was Pat. I'm like, I did good, right? And Pat looked at me in the eyes. He's like, you'll never fucking play here again. And I was like, was he joking?
Why?
And he's like, and I asked him, I said, why? And he goes, next time fill the room with people who don't give a shit about you. And I was like, yeah, fair. And so for the next 2 years, I cut my teeth and toured and played to like nobody. I played to the bartenders, even if they were listening.
Right.
And I started getting good.
Yeah.
Started to get better at my craft. And I called him and begged for a show. And he let me come back reluctantly, and I played, sold the place out, didn't hustle a single person in there.
Nice.
And I came off the stage, and he's like, you got it. Like, you figured it out.
Whoa.
So Calgary was like this crucible for me. It was a really hard city because it's a really tough, like, conservative slab in the middle of Canada. And, to be an artist there is a pretty tough thing to be. You're so isolated from the rest of the country and America and everything. And so, like, it was... I don't know, man. It sharpened all the teeth I have, and I had to earn every single note and lyric.
That's great.
It was wild. So I owe a lot to that place and to the people from there.
That's cool. It's also like, as creatives, you have to go through that kind of the reps. We talk about this in stand-up a lot too. Like, you're doing reps. Like, you're just doing shows. You're fine-tuning your craft every show, right? I think you hit a moment, though, that shift with Ben, where you were like, I'm going to get really good. Part of you almost sounds like you wanted to prove it to yourself, maybe, too. Like, I can get good at this. I'm following this. Did you feel like you like?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I was, I didn't start with the talent. Maybe I get resentful or jealous when I see people who like start with the talent, who don't have to like go through all these hoops. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to outwork you, and then I'm going to outpace you, and then I'm going to outlast you, and then I'll do something with that. And that's been my whole career. That's probably why I ended up in a car in LA. I could have gone back. Like, I'm not a stupid dude. Like, I could have gone back to Canada. Here I signed to Atlantic Records. Great. Like, I did it. Let me go work at a workshop and like, sell it for $300 a person to come sit, and I can just tell you how I did it. So it was like, but it was like, no, I can't. Like, I have to do this. Like, I have so much to say. So I think that experience of like it just not being able to stop.
It's also like the longevity, like I said before, like never stop believing in yourself, because also in entertainment, it's like for your age, the entertainment business kind of goes like, oh, you're this age, or you're, well, onto the, it's worse for women, honestly, but like in general, it's like the youth, it's like they don't want you to be a certain age for certain, especially pop music. It's like you better be this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much the industry. I think it's harder to earn fans.
Yeah.
When you're 16 years old or something like that, there's a whole high school that's going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But when you're 30 or something like that, where do people go and talk? You're at work with all your other car dealership friends, and no one cares. People have real lives, So like I think fan acquisition as you get older is harder, and then what you have to say changes. You know what I mean? It's not like a good joke. A good joke's funny.
Yeah.
A good song's great, but you can sell a joke when you're 80. You can sell a joke when you're 20. A good joke's a good joke.
Yeah.
But selling a song when the vocal folds aren't really doing what they need to do, and you're feeling a bit weathered, Yeah,
but you're an authentic guy. Like your songs you're not like also writing to appeal to a certain demographic. You're writing love songs. You're writing songs about things you experience, right? Like you're genuine about it.
Yeah, I mean, I write whatever I feel.
Yeah.
It's probably why I don't have as many hits. Like, it's like I write, dude, the song that changed my life, it was me living out this car and then on my buddy's couch, and then going and sitting in a songwriting session, having tried everything I could to get back with my ex, and knowing it was at its like final resting point. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go honor the relationship, because it was amazing. It changed my life. It taught me so much about myself. So here's like the roadmap. That was it. And then I had no clue that was going to change my life.
That's so cool, dude. Yeah. Wait, where were you in your music career? Because that song, I really put you on the map, I feel like.
Yeah.
From that one song. And I like that it came from that period of you living in a van. It's like, it's inspirational for anybody listening who is going through similar periods. It's like, and I hear this analogy all the time, and I kind of have a love-hate with this. It's like the glacier analogy when it's in the water, right? Nobody sees the bottom of the glacier.
Yeah.
Well, how about scuba divers? But anyway.
Not a chance.
Nope. But like no one sees all the work down there, but then they see the little glacier top, right? And you don't see it. You don't have a purview. Another one that Greg, who's here producing, says all the time about the jar, the label on the jar. Everyone else sees you in the jar and your label, but we don't see it. So we don't see like what's outside or what people see of us, but also how close you are to our successes, right? So you're living in a van, you're going through this breakup, and then you write the biggest song of your career.
Yeah. Dude, I kept telling myself that the only way through it was through it. Like I need to go through it. I think one of the beautiful things about writing songs is that you can write about it all. So it's like, I hate that tough things have happened, but I'm an artist who needs tough things to happen so that I have something to say.
Yeah.
It's like I've been, I'm telling myself since I've started writing songs that like, if not for this, then for what? Like if I don't utilize all these stories, then what are they for? Mm-hmm. If I don't grow and I have to raise myself and to be a good man and like have no clue what the hell I'm doing, and so yeah, you get to this point where you're like, all right, like here's everything that's happened. What am I going to do about it? And that was If You Love Her. Like it literally was. Like I went to Australia. I spent a month traveling around Australia with my ex, having the most beautiful backdrop to the worst heartache of my life, thinking that maybe there's a chance for things to get back together, and there was no chance. It was dead in the water. And so I'm just roaming around Australia with a busted heart, And I get back from there, and I end up hanging out with my buddy who I wrote the song with, and I'd written like 10 songs with him about my ex, and he was there like during every single moment that this heartbreak was happening. You know, I'm like, oh, she's totally with this other dude right now, and it's really messing me up. And he's watching this happen in real time as I'm like all messed up from it. So I show up at his house, and I'm like, it's over. Like the Australia trip just didn't go where I thought it was going to go. And I was like, I guess let's write. And so I was like, you know, here it is. Here's who she is. And it's a trip, man. Like, again, like I had no clue.
But it's real. I mean, the beauty about what you guys do, and I don't envy your job. Like, you're writing about real heartache. You're writing about, I mean, your past. You're like, everything's on your sleeve. Everything's out. The only way to get good songs is to have vulnerable, you know, things in the song. Vulnerable lyrics, vulnerable stuff. You're in touch with that every day. We do that with comedy, but we hide behind the comedy a little bit. Like, we do it too, but songwriting is harder, I think, for like emotionally, because you're dealing with it all the time. Like, we got songwriters in the house here. You know them. Every day they're tapping into all this stuff. I mean, you're comfortable talking about it, but it's heavy, dude. Like, talking about that every day. But you got to feel like proud of yourself in a way that, like, from how you started your life to getting through these different relationships to then like getting through, like you said, to this point of writing this song that changes your life. You got to have a moment to sit in that and be like, wow, I did get through it. Because like that's inspirational to hear from me. And like you said, people relate to things. Like, you got to have people who relate to what they're going through now, and they're with the wrong person. They're going through losing a job. They feel like they don't know who they are. There's always a way through.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, like this is the job, you know? Like, if you're not vulnerable with it, then what are you doing? And again, there's different strokes for different folks. Like, you know, somebody wants to make a dance beat that makes you forget about it. Makes you want to roll on Molly. Great. That's their view of the world. You know, I think musicians can hide just the same way comics do. You know, you don't have to create something that's so vulnerable. But I think for me, the hard thing is I think not only am I trying to create something vulnerable or just honest, I'm really trying to avoid hardening. Yeah. And I feel like there's this constant state around me, this pressure that is built to make me fall victim to the same things my friends and maybe my family fell victim to. And so vulnerability is like it feels like yoga for me. It's like, okay, well, I need to really not become that shell of myself, and I need to say things and try and express and figure it out. Because like you said, like, there are people out there, and I'm not trying to be anyone's martyr or saint or anything like that, but it's like there's a kid out there who is a version of me who needs the future version of themselves. Yeah. And I think about that a lot. I'm like, you know, you have kids. Your kid's going to listen to music, and your kid's going to connect with a song at some point. And it's like, what is that song really saying? You know, you're going to shield your kid from certain things. You're like, I don't listen to that song. You can't watch Daddy's Special. Like, this is not the thing you want to listen to right now. And so it's like, I think about that. There was a band when I was a kid, when I was in a really rough place and I was scrapping, I was making a lot of money, and they gave me like 10 minutes of their time. That was a really special thing for me. I was like, I felt interesting. I felt like I had something to offer. It was validation. So again, with music and not becoming this like hardened version of yourself, you're potentially offering that to people who use you as their sonic landscape.
Sure. What's interesting about your story though is like, it's almost like, I don't want to say hardening's in your nature, but it is what you were conditioned to do growing up. Hardening.
It's 100% what will happen.
So you have to fight that. Like, that's a hard struggle to have to fight every day to say, like, you know what, I'm just going to... It's hard in relationships, too, I'm sure. I know you're newly engaged. Well, stay positive. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
But I can imagine if that's your go-to to harden, it's hard sharing. Like, you have to figure out, like you said, you have to do, like, kind of emotional yoga.
So, yeah, 100%. Dude, with Thule, I everything with her is a learning curve. Yeah. And it took a lot to... It took my ex and I breaking up to put in the most amount of work I've ever put into myself. At first, I was doing it because I thought it would help me gain favor with her. I was like, I'm going to get back with her, so I'm going to do all these things. I was the cliche of like, you know, you're fat in a relationship, go get fit when they break up, and then like, you get them back. Yeah. But the thing is that if you start getting like mentally fit, you just start to see the world differently. You're like, oh, I kind of like this feeling and what I bring to the table. And so with Thule, our relationship is the healthiest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And it is that. It is like this mental yoga or just staying elastic. It's taking all these things that you learn and actually learn from them, and don't dwell on the shit that you're coming from.
Yeah.
But like, okay, well, this is where I'm at, and that was tough, but I don't want that feeling again. That sucked.
Yeah.
So what can I do differently this time around? And then
Yeah.
what could I do the same? What was me? What was them? Like, you're starting to learn where your boundaries are and where other people's boundaries start, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a communication too. When we can talk about our own inner stuff with partners or if even friendships, it really helps. I avoided this stuff like the plague. The fact that we're talking about it, recording like introspection, and I was a guy in the clouds. I avoided any inner thought. I was like a kid in the playground for most of my life until being in a serious relationship. You have to face yourself. You got to figure out your stuff, what you bring to it. So a woman, any relationship, any loving relationship makes you look at that even more. But it sounds like you were kind of forced to look at it to survive, and then even maybe another layer of it in a serious relationship, or the one before where you had to like go through stuff.
Dude, I mean, I came from that relationship, then ended up in my car, then I meet Thule, and anyone who sees her, like, no, she's stunning to look at, but she's like, when you get to know her, it's that like it blows way past what she looks like. She's incredible. But I mean, dude, she had friends that were like, that guy's not good enough for you.
Wait a second. You met this girl while you were living in a van?
Dude, I was in this.
She's still in LA?
Yeah. Stunning.
Wow, she's a real deal.
I picked her up in my house.
Wow.
And I'm like, I brought her into my house and then drove my house to dinner.
I thought I was bad with a closet in Chinatown with Christina, but you were a van. It was a little different.
I was so lucky with her, man.
That's awesome.
And she saw me for that. Like, I wrote a song with Rob Thomas and my buddy Greg Wattenberg about it, which became my next big song, which was like, cool. It's literally a play-by-play of like, I'd gone through therapy, I like struggled, but I was like, okay, then now I'm living at my buddy's house on his couch, and then I have to sleep in the car every now and then. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where I was, But my buddy's house was basically this garage. It was like a box in Hollywood. It was definitely not something appealing and something you want to invite someone into. And so,
well, you found the right type of girl in this town because there is the cliche about like, what does he drive? What job does he have? Like, it is kind of shallow. I don't even know if it's just LA. It's just people can be very.
No, but
shallow.
I think people come out here because they're trying to do something.
Yeah,
and like I have a love-hate relationship with LA. I love what I've come to understand about LA, but I found it difficult when I got here because it doesn't pay to be authentic here. It's not great to tell your story. It's not great to be honest and open. It's not great to hate somebody.
I'm effed.
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to do.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But it's difficult, man, because if you don't like somebody, which is a struggle for me. If I don't like somebody, I really don't like somebody.
Yeah.
You can earn my trust again, but if you're not a trustworthy person, my survival is dependent on it. Done. So I don't have that speed of like, you're a nice guy, you're just not for me. I'm like, no, stay the hell away from me. I don't like you.
That's fine though. That's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel about it. But LA, I found that people don't do that because if you do that to somebody, that somebody's uncle happens to be a producer, and they have. But it's not like New York.
It's a bubble though.
New York's like, I always say that LA's like a knife in the back with a hug in the front.
Correct.
And New York's like just straight up like,
yeah.
This is what I think about you. I don't really care who your uncle is, and the other person goes like, yeah. That makes sense. I get that.
Yeah, but I think because of like who you are, and I think the authenticity shines through, and it matters for your work, and that's what really all people want. Like I'm similar with like I don't want to be in a bubble. I want to be myself, and I want to do creative comedy and podcast. Like life's too short to like fake stuff. I think so. You seem like a very genuine guy. Even the first day I met you, you're not like a BS guy. You showed up here to do the show. You said you would. You know what I mean? Like that already
is like a 90% above.
And you're moving in a few days. You're leaving here, and you still came by. But I think that like. Yeah, it has to do with where you come from, and it has to do with the type of person, I think. Like anywhere you are. There's good people everywhere. There's authenticity everywhere. You just got to find it.
I think all people have it, but I think people over time, they harden in their own way. You don't have to come from a gang to have the same outcome. That's the thing I've really learned.
You think?
Yeah, it's all the same.
It's human instinct?
It's all relative. It just looks different, but it's all the same outcomes. I walk around the world and I'm like, oh wow, like you're the product of this thing, and this is how you've dealt with it or how you've not dealt with it.
Would you argue it's like you either hit a point in life where you look within and you try and grow from whatever it is to be a better person, or you choose not to? Is that like if you generalize everybody, does it come down to a moment where you go, I better fix what I need to fix, or get stuck in this generational, like, I'm just going to be an alcoholic like my grandfather, my father, my dad. Like,
yeah, I think it comes down to just taking ownership. It's like what my dad did isn't what I have to do.
Yeah.
And it sucks. Like if I sit here and I think about it and I think about the beatings, or like, you know, when I was a kid, we had to flee the country because my dad beat me so bad. Child Protective Services came in to take me.
Oh.
So we fled to Florida for 2 years as that settled.
Even worse place.
Bro.
Florida?
Yeah. Was in Hurricane Andrew. Things are crazy. It was wild.
Yeah, it's worse.
So it's like if I think back to all those things that he did, and then I think back to like what my mom didn't do, and how you know, there was no protection, and how I ended up having to be homeless, and how I had to fight, and how and all the shit that caused me, and then the chaos that ensued because of that, because I was a product of that. I didn't know how to walk through this world. I walked elbows up with a suit of armor, and I just was banging into every single thing on the way and hurting things. So if I blame it all, I have a really good excuse to be a shitty person. Correct. I have such a good excuse.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine. I could walk around and go, look, man, you don't like that I say things the way I say. You don't like the way I talk, or the way I walk, or the way I dress or sound. That's my dad's fault.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And then they can say, well, it's not your dad's fault. And I go, well, I had 2 dads and both screwed me over. So let me tell you, man, I could double down on the dad problem. But the truth is, like, as I've gotten older, I look back and I'm like, wow, okay, I have no dealings with my family. Cool. But I've been able to write about it. And that writing about it has opened opportunities that I have allowed me, as a kid with a grade 10 education, I've been able to see the entire world. And all that shit that happened has allowed me to communicate with people that I probably otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Like, I can relate to people in a much deeper way. If a kid comes to me and is like, dude, like, how can you tell me not to, you know, smash rails off the back of a dive bar bathroom? Like, let me tell you, like, I actually know something about it.
Yeah.
So I think what I've longed for in life was validation and affirmation and connection. And as soon as I just stopped thinking about where it didn't come from, and I start thinking about where I'm actually getting it from, it's so much larger. So I think taking ownership and accountability allows you to at least grow into the most comfortable version of yourself.
Yeah. Because you're accepting what is. I mean, what you're talking about is control. Like, what's in your control and what isn't. You can't control how your parents were, but you can't control what you do with that, and you can't act like a victim your whole life of that. You're basically saying, I'm not, but you can control, you know, working on it and dealing with it, writing about it. Like, you've got a good handle on it, dude. I think you should go speak to kids, like, in the hood. Like, you would be really good with, like, kids who are going through it.
Dude, I think I've done a bit of that growing up. Like,
I can see you doing
you know,
that.
Like, it's something I definitely think about.
Yeah.
You know, I think I needed to earn some stuff before I could, because I found that I started that when I was younger. I was talking to people, and even in music, I had not done anything in music, and I'd walk around being like, this is how you do it. I'm good at seeing failure. I'm really good with risk. Like, I don't like risk. Risk is a complicated thing for people like me. It's like, you don't risk things. Risk is imminent danger. Like, there's no safety net on this wire that I'm walking.
Which is crazy that you're an artist in music, because it's the riskiest. Entertainment's one of the riskiest businesses ever, and it's really hard to make money and make it.
Well, that's success. Yeah. That's all that is. Like, to me, so like, I don't make music because I ever thought about being a millionaire. Like, I never thought about it. I made music because it was the only thing that made me feel something.
Right. So you do it anyway.
Yeah. So whether I'm loaded or poor.
We say that all the time too. Like, as comics, you know, like, we go do free shows all the time, or you make money doing shows. It's for the art of it, it's for the craft of it. It's awesome that you were able to find your way, though, and make it your career. I mean, it's amazing that you've gone where you've went with it. Have you thought about because you write about your family, you talk about your ex, have you thought about them, like, hearing you on the radio at home or anything like that?
Dude, I think about it all the time. Like, you know, like,
because I know all your hits have been played, but your first hit, I remember hearing your first hit every day for a long time. Like, it still gets spins, I feel like, right?
Oh, it's crazy.
It's always on the radio, your song. Both your songs. The two songs.
So those are on the radio like crazy. And then just, like, dude, it was like a big moment in Love Is Blind when the dude's on the boat trying to ask the other girl to marry him now. Like, it doesn't stop.
It's awesome.
So I think a song is just, once it connects with people, it connects. But it's like, I open up the back end of Spotify and I'm like, oh wow, we got 1 million plays right now.
That's awesome.
You know, I can see that 2,000 people are listening right this second. It's crazy. Wow. Like,
but but you said you think about your family sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, dude, here's the truth of it. Like, I also write like these spoken words, and I've written about this in this poetry that I've put out. Where, like, my father, his whole thing is he was trying to make money. He wanted to feel the success of what it was that he was doing, and he did. He made tens of millions of dollars doing it. But the whole time he overlooked 3 gems. Like, my sister is beautiful, and she is so witty and sharp, and like she's tough. Like, she's incredible. My little brother could make you buy anything. Like, he had this skill in him, and smart. Like, everyone would tell him his whole upbringing how smart he was, and he was. Like, he had this way that, like, as soon as he walks in a room, you just want to be his best friend. It's so weird. And then me, I'm this like poet and wordsmith, and I'm really like, this deep dive into myself to grow to be something special. And it's so interesting to think about him, my father, like, just looking too far in one direction that was away from us, and completely missing. And then my mom was like, she's like an angel landed here, like, and he missed it all.
Dude, you're making me tear up.
Yeah, but that was it. Because he missed it all.
I didn't mean to cry, but I'm thinking as a father, like, you get stuck on your dreams, you get stuck on one track. I'm feeling bad. I'm trying to make it about me, but I like ignored my daughter because I was trying to get to a job thing, and you were trying to pursue your dreams. It's like you just said it. It's like, you can't miss out on the gems in front of you of life and your family. You know?
He missed it all.
Wow.
He lost it all. And to think of a man going from being worth tens of millions of dollars. Again, I don't know him. I only hear things down the pipe, like, every so often. Yeah. I heard that he was delivering pizzas out of a shit car. And I'm like, wow. Like, you deserve that. And it's not my responsibility to feel anything about that.
Yeah.
Or my biological father, man. Dude, crazy story, but when I moved in with my Nana when I was 15, she's like, you have to get a job.
Yeah.
And so I worked at this French fry place in a different part of the city, in Montreal. And it had this big bay window in the front, and the only thing you could see in front of it was like a couple brick buildings and then this one little house. And I remember working, and I would think about, oh man, like, nobody loves me, no one cares about me, and like, even my biological father wants nothing to do with me. And when I met my biological dad when I was 18, he lived in that house that I stared at for a whole year while flipping burgers and serving fries. It was a trip. And so, like, even him, like, like, I go and see him and befriend him, and like, I'm so, like, wow, a second chance to have a dad, and like, I see his face and my face, which is really wild when you haven't seen that before. And I'm like, wow, and I meet my little brothers and sisters that I didn't know, and and I brought one of my best girlfriends over to meet him, and he tried to make out with her in his basement. His wife's upstairs, and I'm like, you're the worst, and so, like, I think about all of them. Like, he my biological dad sold me for 10 grams of coke. My stepdad bought my name.
Oh my God.
Like, that's why I changed my name, which I always hate talking about, and I don't know how to talk about it. It's like,
your stage name now, or your
my name's Forest Blakk, but that's not my biological name. Like,
so
I hated my name. It had so much weight, and I never realized how much it affected me.
Interesting.
And so when people, like, you get fans who, like, try and dig and then try and call me because they think it's a connection thing, and I'm like, I like don't even want to answer. I'm like, dude, like, I hate it. But yeah, like, to find out that, I was like, why didn't you ever talk to me? 'Cause I found my biological dad in the phone book when I went homeless. And all these synchronicity things, man. Like, my favorite number is 17, so I called 1 through 16, wasn't him. I called 48 through 18, wasn't him. 17th number, him. Like, all these weird things, bro. And so he answers the phone, like, his wife answers, and then I'm like, hey, I'm calling for X and X. Like, I think I might be his son. I don't know, it's weird, sorry. And she, like, calls the guy over, and she's like, and he gets on the phone, and he's super nonchalant. I'm like, hey, did you marry X, And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm your son. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, can I come see you? And he's like, no. And I was like, God. Whoa, bro. I was in a rough spot. And he said, no. And I went homeless. And so he's like, call me when you're 18. And so I went and saw him when I was 18. And that's when he told me. He's like, yeah. So, like, your stepdad bought you from me and told me I could never see you again. And I was like, okay.
Jeez.
And I was like, damn, dude.
Wow. It's amazing to hear all that you've been through, and the fact that you've kind of been able to live a fruitful life. Like you said, you have every excuse to just like, you know, honestly, you probably sound like you would have ended up dead or on the streets.
100%.
You something beyond you, whether it was a guitar strum or it was something that like was able to kind of protect you from that life. What do you think of that stuff? Because people talk about it all the time. It's something beyond us. It's faith.
I don't know. You? I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what it is. You know, I don't have this like grandiose walk with any like, you know, this, you know, like a temple walk or anything with anything. I think, I don't know what the current of life is, but I do know that anytime it's gotten so hard where I didn't want to live anymore, I was afraid how to word it. There's been a few times in life where I didn't want to live here anymore. I wanted to take my life. And I came really close to it. And I felt so bad even about that I'm like, oh, then I can't do that. Like, I felt miserable about the thought. I was like, well, if I'm going to die, well, I have to spend all the money in my bank. Or I got to go shark diving first or something, or skydiving. I'm really afraid of skydiving. And I'm like, I can't go skydiving. And I had the second question in my head. Well, why, you idiot? Like, you don't want to live.
Right.
I'm like, oh, shit, I'm afraid of dying.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess I want to live.
There you go.
You know, so, like, I don't know where it comes from, but I do love when I feel good in life. And I love walking around. I love meeting people. I love talking. Like, when I was living in the back of that car, every single night I would go and walk Hollywood Boulevard. I'd walk a 5K. And I became friends with all the homeless people. I talked to all of them. There's this guy named Jeff who hangs outside of Popeyes. He's this little short dude. He's a Haitian dude. He doesn't want any money. He just wants 2 pieces of chicken, and he wants a drink and a piece of potatoes. And like, dude, I became friends with all these people. And like, I hung with the riffraff and like got to know their stories. And I would talk to the Scientology people and be like, what's your story? Y'all are crazy.
Are you the answer?
Yeah, no, definitely not the answer. But it was a question. Like, what? Why?
Yeah.
And it became so nice because there was no bullshit. There was no fake anything. It was like
you were seeking. And I love that about you, that you haven't really ever stopped doing that. And now through your music success, you still strike me as someone you're seeking all the time.
All the time. Yeah, Tully will tell you, man. Like I talk to the waiters and waitresses, and I'm friends with the people who bag the groceries, and like I'm so infinitely connected with the people.
Yeah,
that's what I joke. Like, I don't know what else to say other than like a Robin Hood vibe, but it's like I feel like I'm robbing from the towers of success, and I just want to give my heart to all the people in my neighborhood.
That's beautiful,
you know?
Man. I mean,
like,
I think you've held on to what really matters in life too. And I'm a similar type of person where I love all people and I want to talk to. I would do a job where I talk to people, but you're reminding me. And I think for everybody listening, you're reminding like that hardening you're describing is something that we all need to remember, because even me, whether it's becoming a parent or my age, you do kind of, like, am I the friendliest to an Uber driver? 10 out of 10? Maybe not now. I used to be. Where are you from? You shut off and slowly make decisions to kind of harden. And I love your, philosophy on life. And I am similar about live each day to the fullest, talk to everybody, meet people. There's beautiful souls everywhere.
To just be curious.
Just be curious.
Hardening is the antithesis of curiosity.
That's right.
If you lose curiosity, it means that you've forgotten what it is to live. Like, just be curious, because curiosity is what you find when you have nothing. That's all you have. Questions,
right?
All of which you're never going to answer anyway. On both ends, like I joke, and I'm like, I'm an architect of answerless questions. Like, all questions just lead to better questions,
right?
And so, but I'm curious. I want to know your story. I want to know where you come from. I want to know why you're here, what you're doing, because this is weird. I don't really give 2 shits about where I go. I'm really curious about how I got here. Like, I just woke up in a flesh suit one day and was like, this is oddly comfortable. I think I like this.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious. I just, like, why do we make joy out of misery? Why do we tell jokes about sad things that are hard? It's like the Anthony Jeselnik joke about Clapton, and I'm like, how do you do that? How do you tell something so dark in a way that makes people laugh about something awful? And I think that's so interesting. I'm just curious. So
it's the beauty of the arts, honestly. And we all, to your point about earlier, we all relate, like being relatable. That's why I like also with your success, because not that everybody who makes money and has people seeing their work, but like you can change from that too. I'm glad to see you now. I better not see you in 5 years where you don't even pretend like you don't know me.
No, dude,
that can happen.
Dude, I'll never be like that, man. It can't happen to me. Like,
I think
if that happens, then I don't deserve And it's not a knock on anybody who is like that, because I know tons of people are like that.
Well, you're around everyone now.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the thing that makes me most miserable is like meeting people, and like, you know how they say when you're young, don't meet your idols. And I'll meet people that I really like, and they're just not good people.
Yeah.
And not even that they're good people, they're just not curious anymore.
That's such
and
a great
and that affects me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit, well, you're not curious about me.
Yeah. Well, so what I was saying earlier is like you do reach a point where people start to size up where they're curious. It's really a perspective on where your curiosity lies and matters. You're saying always keep it on.
Yeah.
I do think as you get successful in show business, people do pick and choose. I'll stay curious to you because you're the director of the movie, or I'll stay curious to you because you're in charge of the radio company, but I don't know what I can get from you. It can become transactional.
Dude, it's like I hear all these people talking, especially out here. This has been like a theme for the past year in my world. So like, you know, I can be on TikTok on a live stream, or I can be anywhere, or like you do like a South by or a conference, and this fucking word, networking. I hate that word. I hate it. I have such a bad taste in my mouth about it. It's like networking is basically you saying that you're going to walk around to try and collect people who can help you. And one of those people, if you network hard enough, you're going to do really well with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, man, it's connection.
Yeah.
Walk around and meet people. Be less facetious. Be more curious. And what's going to happen is you're going to find something in somebody, and you're going to connect. And the thing about connection is connection bleeds into this ecosystem of friendship or familiarity, and there's a natural inclination, like a natural desire to help people.
Right.
That I think all of us have that. You know, it's like, well, I'd rather hook my friends up. Like, you know, my buddy Davis, he says buddy cuts. So if you write songs and you land a song with your friend, you can change the lives of not only yourself but your friend.
Right. Yeah.
Buddy cut.
Yeah.
But as songwriters, we date other songwriters. Like we go into rooms with strangers, and we basically do this. But like perfect strangers with a guitar, and you go, so and like I'll be in a room, be like, my dad sold me for 10 grams of coke, and there'll be a guy going like, 10 grams of coke, mate. What a good title for a song. And you're like, that hurts, bro. Like just like I'm just talking.
It's not the hook, dude.
So tell me more about your dad.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
So nevertheless, it's when you get buddy cuts, they're amazing. But I think that's what it is when you connect with people. Connection breeds opportunity, like naturally. That's just the way it flows. So I've had this thing in my for this year. I've been, anybody I hear the word networking, I run.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really glad I got to network with you today, but
thanks.
No,
Not curious right now.
that's what ends up. You're right. I think naturally your friends want to help friends, and it's about how you look at it. Like if you meet people just to get something out of them, it's going to feel that way. Whereas I have plenty of friendships in this town and beyond where we help each other out. But like you said, it's connection, and we want to see everyone win. I think I'm more cut that way like you. Like you want everyone to win together, and you're not just like, what am I going to get from this? What are you going to get from this podcast besides one new fan of your music, one person listening? So you're here just because we're connecting.
That's it. You're not going to gain from networking.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because it's like a hookup, like a quick hookup. Like it's not longevity. What you're describing is longevity, connection, real friendship. That's where things are fruitful. I'm gonna remember your Ben character too, your buddy, because that was a connection. That was, hey, let's jam.
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna come from this. I'm not great, but I want to learn. You know, that curiosity about wanting to learn too. I think we all can learn from as we hear it, because we also are in a place in culture which I always talk about this. I don't want to rail against social media, but it's like, everyone wants to appear to be an expert all the time. Like your Calgary stuff, like if you were on social media at the time saying you were a songwriter, I'm sure because it was you, but a young kid now, are they going to say, well, I want to just appear like I'm a successful songwriter. I'm not going to go try and harass people for tickets. I want my Instagram to look like I'm successful. Like I fear that we don't have those kind of like roll your sleeves up moments because we all just want to look like we're at the top of our game all the time on social media. Like, oh, I'm just doing it.
I mean, not me, dude. I'm like, I'm hand-to-hand combat all day long.
Yeah.
Like I have 4,100 fans that I text regularly.
That's smart.
Not one of them has not received a text from me. Like every single one of them.
That's great.
So I think, but I'm old school that way. Like I see value in that, and it's hard because I do understand that as things scale up, it's not as easy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, like you said, being in an Uber. And you have that 1 hour, let's say like from your house to the airport, and you have this like one little gap in time where you can do things where you don't have to be the driver, and so you start catching up. You're just constantly playing catch up, or maybe your kid made you stay up all night and you haven't had a chance to doze off.
Yeah,
it's hard to be curious as you scale up.
Yeah,
but I think that that's on us as people to figure out how to do it. And it's like maybe having different boundaries or like a knowledge or know-how of what does the curiosity have to be. It doesn't mean that you have to ask all the questions in the world. It doesn't mean that you have to hold a conversation. Like, you know, for instance, I every single person I meet, all cultures in the world, I've tried to learn a word in their language, just one word, just that, and how much that's changed my life and how I've seen it change other people's lives. That can be it. Like getting in an Uber and you know, hey, thank you for picking me up. I always say that. And, you know, where are you from? Which is I've also learned is a really weird question in America. That can sometimes you have to take down defenses to get to that part.
Yeah, or sometimes people don't want to say a country. They'll say like a
yeah,
first.
Dude, here's a quick anecdote. I was in Calgary, had to stop and get gas. I walk into the gas station. I'm waiting for like something to happen. They weren't able to get my gas rung up right away. And I asked the person behind the counter, I'm like, oh, where are you from? And I could see they're Middle Eastern somewhere. And the person, like, I watched the whole demeanor change. It got really dark in the room. And they're like, I don't want to say. And I was like, well, where are you from? Like, and I felt the need to press on it, which maybe wouldn't always be the case. Again, it's kind of like case by case. But they didn't say it in a way that said, don't ask me again. It was like, it was them going to a bad place in themselves. So I was like, no, like, it's okay. Where are you from? And then she answers, she goes, from the bad place. And I was like, what is this person talking about?
Which war?
Which war?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And so I press again. And then she reluctantly tells me, she goes, I'm from Afghanistan.
Ah, I was going to guess that.
And I was like, Tashakur. I was like, that's how you say thank you.
Oh.
And as soon as I said that, I watched like all the vibe and light come flying into their face and how happy they were. And I was like, that is so cool, man, that you can do that with people. And that's that curiosity. It doesn't have to be like these long, drawn out exchanges. It's just, but I always like to think, you know, like you asked me about my songs, and if I think about people hearing them, I haven't left the best imprint on some people, which I can't do anything about. There's a person who met me when I was 21, and they have a bad taste in their mouth about 21-year-old me. And,
gosh, don't
and
you hate
so
those?
do I.
I know.
And that bad taste in my mouth is what's caused me to get stronger and grow and be a better version of myself. But unfortunately, those people don't have that view and haven't seen the magic looking glass of what the last years have looked like.
You can't also please everyone forever. Everyone has those people.
Yeah, what someone else's opinion of you is theirs. And so, but I do like to think about all the instances in life where like I was curious enough to leave something positive.
Yeah.
Because in my life, like there was a band that I met that I told you about, that their 10-minute interaction changed my life.
Do we know that band, by the way?
Their band's called I Mother Earth.
Okay.
It's a Canadian like alt rock band.
Nice.
They were playing a show in Mont Tremblant in Quebec on this mountain. And Mont Tremblant is the mountain. And they were staying at a bar, and the bouncer came to me because I was a thug doorman making a ton of money. He was like, "You like music, you know? And there's a band here." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And so I went and I saw them. And it was this guy named Brian and this guy named Bruce, the singer and the bass player. And they're hanging. I was like, "Hey, man, what's up?" And they talked to me like I wasn't some idiot kid.
Right.
They were like, "Hey, what's up, man?" They were curious about me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "I have like a tape cassette with a song that I wrote on it. Could I get it for you?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're hyped. And so I like ran down the mountain, got in my shit little car, drove to this place that had a tape cassette, and I grabbed my tape cassette and I recorded it, and I brought it back, and they waited. It probably took me an hour. And they waited for me.
Wow.
And I gave them this tape cassette. They talked to me for like 10 minutes. And that feeling, man, I you know, it's funny because like now all the people I work with in my label, like they know this band. They're like a little band.
Right.
They don't have like the millions and millions of plays and like, you know, but to me, they were superstars.
Yeah.
And I realized in my life, like I'm bigger than they were now in my life, and that's crazy.
Yeah.
So that 10 minutes or 10 seconds, I'm like, that's what you're really.
It's amazing.
Like, man, and again, it's not to play martyr or like holier than thou. It's just, it's cool. Like,
well, I love your theme for this conversation. It's like remain curious. Their curiosity allowed you to open your doors and led to you doing the things you did because they were open. Like if you're not open, if they were like, who's this kid? We're rock stars. Your life could have been different. You could have had different experiences.
Yeah, it feels like that game that they have on, it's like an app where it's like the black checkers and the white checkers, and like you create a line and it flips all the colors over.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a shit moment with somebody, like in my life, I've definitely given people some pretty terrible moments. That I don't know how that's negatively impacted like other lines of life. Because you give someone a really terrible day, they go home and then maybe they treat their partner like shit.
Right.
They're just not nice. And it's like, well, the opposite could be said. Like, how many times you just out of the blue affect somebody or impact somebody, and then it's like, damn, like wow. And then the fact that I'm in a position now where people look up to me. When I was young, no one really looked up to me. So maybe it stopped that quickly. You know, there's people who ruined my days, but I don't really think about them. But that band, I think about them every day.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm like, wow, I am that band for somebody now.
Yeah.
So it's like a really cool torch to think about.
Yeah. And you have to, I really love that you're staying open to that, because you're making a difference in your own way now with your career, with others. And it's just a great reminder, man. Like we all could become closed. I like also you're talking about like I've been to Stoicism a little bit, like Stoic philosophy. They teach basically like amor fati is the love of fate, and you're kind of describing this in a way too, where it's like when bad things happen or hurtful things, you use all that stuff, you find what you can get from it that will better your life, right? Which sounds like what you've done. One of the analogies I bring up to people that I love is Thomas Edison had his entire factory burned down when he was developing everything. I think he was in Jersey, Jersey. But it wasn't
refrigerator repairman company.
Yeah. There was a repairman. He's like, I got a repair for you. Yeah, he's just an arsonist.
You haven't given us enough of the.
He burns things down. But it's like in The Sopranos. They burn the restaurant down. But the analogy, which I love, it's this guy Ryan Holiday's an author. I've read all of his books, but he talks about this one analogy with Thomas Edison, where the whole factory burned down. And he had inventions, things that were like going to change the world. He was developing all the things he did, electricity, everything, right? And he wasn't like, oh, my career's over. He got his whole family. He said, check this out. It's like, this is the biggest fire you're ever going to see. This is incredible. He was like, look at it. And then he rebuilt his factory bigger, better, stronger. Took the hit. He had things he had to redo from scratch. All that suffering, all that struggle, and made it better for himself, and ended up changing the world after that. That was a pivotal moment, I guess, because he wasn't... And I could be getting some of the facts wrong, but like he didn't go on to do everything until after that. And that guy could have been like, all my inventions are gone. I'm going to just start drinking and F this. Instead, he's Thomas Edison. So I like equating it to this, because it's like you had a lot of fires in your life. You've had things burning down. And you're like, let me see what I could take from that, and
what's the other option? That's the problem.
Yeah.
Like there's no safety net.
Yeah.
In my life, and so I don't either walk and keep walking, and every time you trip and fall, and you're lucky enough that you caught a finger on the rope. Like that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like it's my opportunity to pull myself back up. It's not fun. It's not easy, and there's been a lot of times where I struggled to keep going. I'm like, I don't know if I have the juice to continue. Like. To fail multiple times, man, has been really hard. Like again, like I'm committed to the craft of music and art, and I've suffered for it when I could have just changed speeds, and I could have earned more money and maybe suffered less. But I felt that the outcome of art was special to me. It's like I only imagine for you guys, as comics, like which I started in before music, by the way. I was writing comedy, and I didn't know. I was like sitting at a Denny's at midnight, writing down thoughts that I thought were funny because they were sad.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to take something that's so tragic and terrible and then craft it. There's something about that applause at the end of that. You're like, all this shit was because like now I can say it in a room of 1,000 or 5 or 1, and I don't have to feel like shit alone. Like everyone is laughing at the shit.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're turning struggle into triumph. You're like I said, the Stoics, you're turning something hard into something good for you, and you have to live your life that way. Because guess what? Life's going to go hard. It's going to get tough. Things aren't easy, but you can always move forward. This is such an inspirational chat. I feel like I'm in therapy.
Yeah, me too.
But through your life, it's helping me. I'm like, thanks, dude. This is great.
No, but vice versa, man. Like I remember talking to your wife, and we were talking about If You Love Her. And she said to me something that I've told in rooms now, where I'm like, she said, one of the privileges of having a tough moment is the fact that you can honor it.
Yeah.
Those are her words. Those weren't mine.
Yeah,
And I've said it in this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so privileged to honor an ex that broke my heart into a million pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm so honored that like I have the privilege of carrying that story.
Sure.
And
it all matters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, wow, you know, like it sucks. I don't have to hate her. I don't have to be like, oh, you hurt me. And no, it's like we just didn't work. And it's like, and then a hit song came out of it, and all my dreams came true. I met the love of my life, and like my full equal.
Wow.
You know, and like I've never seen somebody so clearly in my life. I've never felt so seen by somebody.
It's amazing.
You know, I'm like, but I can tell you, like, you know, the other day, dude, I went down to PCH, and I sat on the rocks that I used to sit on at night. And, you know, Tuli and I, we met on the west side of LA. So she went back to her apartment and ran into her friends. And I just went on this little field trip by myself and went and pulled into the Vons, got out and like walked across the street and like sitting by the rocks. And I'm like, how awesome is it that 3 and a bit years ago I sat here every night wondering like what was happening? Like, why the shift? Like, why now? Why then? Like, what's going on? What's going to be? I thought about a future. I thought about where I would end up, and it was a blank slate. And it was hard because there was nothing there. And the dismantling of a future I had built up in my head had to start.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of like a breakup or a new life experience, is that you dismantle a whole entire future that you had. And then you have to conjure up a new route, like a whole new destination. Damn. Like, damn, it's like, shit. So it was a trip, you know. I made a video about it where I talk about it. I'm like, it's crazy how much your life can change in a few years. And I think about it every day. Like, maybe this is the consequence of being in love. You know, you probably know it better than I do because you have a kid and I don't. But with Tuli, I've realized something this year that I've never thought of before, and it's the first time I loved something more than myself. I've never felt that before. I've loved so close to as much as me.
Yeah, yeah.
But if I had to like hang myself or them off a cliff, well, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know.
With Tuli, I don't think about it. It's like the first time where I'm like, wow, like I can, wow, and so now I'm like, I have a whole other world that I'm thinking about. I'm like, I really need to be a little more successful. I need to make enough money so that I can do it like what my grandfather did for my grandmother before he passed away.
Yeah,
I can have a future for her, and you know, like the things that are in my head now, and I've never felt that before.
It's amazing, man. You continue to grow and have perspective. I mean, it's a lesson for all of us, truly. Like you just remember to continue to seek, it seems like, and you have a perspective you're not going to lose. And I think you're going to go on to do bigger and bigger things in music and stay real, which is good. You're going to hold on to that. I think you have to make the art and to inspire others.
I think people stop listening if I don't.
Definitely.
I think that's where people turn me off. They
Sure.
go, oh no, man, it's not.
You're not a bubblegum. You can't just do any contrived thing. You got to be real.
Yeah, I've tried. It doesn't work.
You have?
No. But I mean, like, everybody's trying to fit things in, you know, like there's a way you tell a joke, there's a way you write a song.
Yeah.
There's a hook, there's hook, line, and sinker that has the whole thing. But yeah, if the fabric of the story isn't there, then it's like, I don't get away with telling songs or telling stories in songs that aren't real. That's basically it.
Before you go, because I like being on the spot with my artist friends, I got a guitar here. Should we try a little something before you go?
Oh God, what am I trying? Are you singing?
I can. Well, here
You're playing the guitar.
I shouldn't, but I can.
Wow.
Is that a tune or what?
Are you Ben?
Huh? I'm Ben. I'm your old friend Ben. No, because you said you do this all the time in writer sessions, and you've written here at this house, a lot of songwriters here, but you've never written with me, and I've taken it personally.
Wow. All right.
If we had to come up with a quick song together about this experience, this bromantic therapy chat we just had, do you think we could do it based on this chord?
Just with that chord.
Yeah, it's not.
We're not going anywhere else. You're not going to take the 2 and just go down 1.
So this?
No. Just go back, then drop them just to 2 top right there. Only 1 each. Yeah, that feels good. Now you have 2 chords.
All right, cool.
This is our bromance.
This is our bromance.
And this is a story about 2 dudes telling their truths. just letting all of their truths out, yeah. This is a bromance, just two dudes talking about all the things that happen in their lives together. Trying to make a difference, trying to be a little inspirational without sounding cheesy. Now this is what we're doing. Normally there'd be a new chord or a new set of lyrics or a new melody or new words, but Paul only has 2 chords to work with, and that's cool. Oh yeah. And
only got my 2 chords. Forrest, thanks for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure.
I was inspirized. Not a word, yo.
Feels right, YOLO.
YOLO. Seriously, thank you for coming on. I want to do a little music coming out. I'm a pretty bad guitar player, better drummer.
It's amazing.
On the drum set. Guys, make sure you check out Forest Blakk everywhere he is. Check him out on social media. Listen to his music.
Yes.
And we're going to end with a little outro, because Forrest is a bromance.
A bromance. Paul is also a bromance.
This was a bromantic chat.
Holistic conversation, never even scripted.
It got serious and that.
And kind of funny, especially when I said that my dad sold me for 10 grams. This song was called 10 grams.
You finally made a song out of it.
That's a call back, kids.
Forrest, thank you for being here, man. It was
Thanks,
great
man.
to
Thanks
have
for
you
having
on.
me.
Amazing. I'm so
sweating.
inspired.
I'm sweating.
I'm sweating too. It's the hottest day of the year.
Yeah, so
and we're in a
crazy.
garage. Just turn the air on.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, guys. We'll see you next week. Pop up with Paul and Friends. Forrest Blakk, good luck with the move, man.
Thanks
for opening your heart to us and reminding us to stay curious. I appreciate it, brother.
Stay curious, man. Stay curious.